What is up, everyone? This is, I think, this is a wacky one. I think this is episode technically 101 because we're saving number 100 for something big that I've been working on and planning behind the scenes. It's coming up, I think we're going to launch live January 17th. I'm going to do a best of Meet the Experts for our technically 100th episode. But you can't stop doing episodes in the meantime. It's just the power of podcasting and videos. You don't want to stop your momentum, so we've got some more guests booked in the meantime, and we might be a little out of order, but you know what, it's my show, who cares? Anyway, what are you watching? What are you doing here? This is Meet the Experts. Welcome. My name is Jay Vix. I run a digital marketing agency and a software that is called journeybuilder.io. And we power the entire show on Journey Builder. So that's our main sponsor and what we do. So all of our emails, websites, automations, every interaction with every guest is all powered by Journey Builder. Then we use StreamYard to stream these out. And we've done over 100 of them since the pandemic started. So today I have Shaun Colon with me. He and I really just met, but we come from the same place. Like, we come from this pop punk music background. He still plays in a band. I don't. But we had a really good conversation. And I can't wait to tell you a little bit more about what he does on the filmmaking side. He's a very talented filmmaker. I actually didn't even know this, and I watched a documentary on Fat Records. And most of my audience is going to be like, I don't know what Fat Records is. It sounds silly. Fat Records is a legendary punk rock record label run by one of the guys from NoFX. And I loved this documentary because it really captured the scene that I kind of grew up in. And then I realized that the guy who did the movie is now going to be on Meet the Experts today. So without further ado, Shaun, how the heck are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to have you on. And like I said, when I made that connection, or when that connection was made for me, that you did that documentary, I was like, this is so cool. I can't wait to talk to him. So go ahead. Why don't you start? Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Well, I'm Shaun Michael Colon. Amongst other things, I direct feature-length documentaries because I'm a glutton for punishment. As you spoke about, that one of my first documentaries was a Fat Wreck, which is about Fat Records. I think you mentioned that. And it was I had no expertise in filmmaking when I started. I had no idea what I was doing. So I just was somebody that I'm autodidactic. So I tend to learn things on my own. So I just started doing it, and sometimes things work. Sometimes things work. I don't know how to say it other than that, but I have one of my greatest skill set is grit and determination. Is that I just kind of keep figuring stuff out, and so like that movie kind of it was on Amazon Prime for a long time. It got picked up. I did a lot of film festivals with it. People seem to enjoy it. I enjoyed making it, although it was also very challenging, but it really I have a background in marketing, and it kind of brought in that skill set. And, obviously a passion for the punk rock scene of that time was helpful. The fact that no one else had made any documentaries about that time period was also, had a big window open that no one had jumped into yet. And I don't know if there's too many other ones that have even popped up since then. It's really kind of it's not dramatic enough, maybe, because it wasn't as violent as some of the previous punk rock scenes. Like in the 80s, they're like, in the 80s, the skinheads were beating everybody. It's like, just a bunch of kids skateboarding and playing punk rock.
Just singing about girls and breakups.
Yeah, during the peak of civilization, I think the mid 90s is when it was like the peak of like everyone making the most money, like the least amount of problems and things like that. And
sure.
So, so like that kind of got me into making more films. I've played in bands for a long time and been an audio engineer for a long time, and I've had different roles and have a little bit of a tech side to me as well, which, like I said, filmmaking kind of pulls all those things together where it's, outreach to people, especially documentary. You're really asking people to let you into their lives and
Sure.
tell their story, and sometimes into their houses, like some rando, like, can I come to your house and interview you? But as you know, people love talking about themselves.
Yes.
So it was not that part was kind of fun, especially once I think you might have mentioned that the singer from No Effects, Fat Mike, was in the movie. Once he gave me the yes, and we did an interview with him, almost everybody else was like pretty much on board. I continue to make films. I've been working on for the last 6 years or so, working on a documentary about this space, actually, the podcast space. Some of your viewers / listeners may be familiar with Ira Glass from This American Life, which is a pretty popular radio show and podcast. It's continually in the top 10 of all podcasts. I actually hung out with, this is a cool story. I ended up hanging out with, and this is prior to me making this documentary, but I ended up hanging out. I was working on a different documentary, and through a series of events, I ended up hanging out with Ira Glass at a Propaganda show, which is Propaganda is this kind of fairly obscure punk rock band. If you're into Fat Records, you'd know who they are. If you watch the movie, if anybody sees the movie, they'll know who Propaganda is now. But ended up hanging out with Ira Glass at a Propaganda show, and we ended up chatting a whole bunch, and it semi-led to the creation of this podcast documentary. It didn't initially hit me right away, but once I had the idea, I was like, oh, I hung out with Ira Glass. He might say yes to an interview if he hung out with me already, and we chatted for hours. So, it wasn't like a meet and greet. We ended up chatting for like a long time, and then went to we were filming with this other band, and he came to that show as well and hung out there. And it was a kind of a weird, that's how I knew we were on the darkest timeline. I was like, this is not supposed to happen. Ira Glass is not supposed to be at a Propaganda show. So somehow I've jumped into some alternate universe. So, but yeah, so I started working on I've been a passionate consumer of podcasts for a long time. And for some reason, anytime I get really deep into something, I'm like, oh, I should make a documentary. It actually wasn't the initial idea was someone else's, but they said it out loud. And they're like, Ira Glass, and this other guy, Roman Mars at the time. I know him still, but they're like, Roman Mars and Ira Glass. Why aren't you making a podcast documentary? And I was like, F you, man. Don't do that to me. Now I have to make that. Yeah. I just ate up a decade of my life.
Wow. So it does take a long time to do to make a documentary because of probably travel. I mean, I guess you can do a lot remote now, but money and time, I mean, it's got to be a labor of love.
It definitely has to be. Otherwise it's insane. It's like an insane thing to do if you're not passionate, because there's not a ton of money. I mean, if this particular movie does well, I'm sure I'll be able to recoup what I got and make a little money, but it's definitely not a financial endeavor. It's an endeavor to I was in a unique position to tell the story. Funding is definitely always a challenge. That's the biggest challenge I think of you've done startups, and I'm sure you've done things like that. Funding is one of the hardest things to do, and especially with something like a film where you're like, it will exist if you give me money, and they're like, but you can't show me. I can't show you until I have the money. I can show you some stuff, but I can't show you the movie until it's done. So you have to kind of just take my word that I'm going to make a movie and it'll get made.
Trust me.
I mean, I did make one before, so that's usually helpful. One of the reasons for the length of time has to do with funding. Some of it has to do with COVID and everything shutting down. Because it definitely is. It's a lot harder to convince someone to come to their house during COVID.
You don't say.
Like, hey, and we could do something similar to this, but really the way we make documentaries is very cinematic, and so we want to have control over the environment and the lighting and
Yes.
the cameras being used. So we did a couple things, but really we couldn't really do much until the pandemic ended. Gotcha. Or came to a point where people were outside their houses, at least. So yeah, making documentaries is very challenging. There's definitely been some times during the course of those 6 years where I've questioned what I was doing, and but like what I like to do is get to myself into a certain point where it makes no sense to stop. So like it would be like at this point I've done, we've done like 45 interviews, some of the biggest people in podcasting. I've developed networks. I've gone to some of the biggest podcast conferences, like Podcast Movement, and some of the like Third Coast, and some of the other. I've been, so I've networked with all these people. So if I were to just stop right now, it would just be. And I've considered it. I have considered it a couple of times, but I considered it for about 2 minutes, right? And I go, that's dumb. I'm gonna finish this thing. So like I said, going back to my thing, that one of my greatest talents is not giving up. Right. I think is the thing. So yeah, so I make documentaries. I do a couple other smaller entrepreneurial, very much smaller entrepreneurial things to generate money. As a creative knows, if you're a creative, this is what I say: starving artists is bullshit. Bull. I don't know if we can say bad words.
We don't really restrict that.
But it's like, how creative are you? Right? Like, oh, I could make songs. Yeah, well, let's get creative other places. Let's figure out a way to make some money. And and that's why it takes so long, is because it's usually juggling, trying to figure out ways to. I mean, I'm a father and I have a family, and I have to be a responsible adult for the most part. And so like trying to juggle the two things is what takes a long time. I'm sure if I had raised $500,000 right away, I could probably make the movie lickety split. But that's why, like, like you said before, it's a passion. There has to be a passion there. There has to be a certain kind of a thing that you can grab onto and say, no, I want to do this. And there's encouragement along the way. I don't know if you're a Marvel fan, but there's that scene in Endgame where Hawkeye becomes Ronin, and they're going to bring everyone back. Spoiler alert. And one of the characters comes up and he turns around and he's like, don't do that. Don't give me hope.
But it's funny that you say that. It kind of brings up like my next question. Along the way, I mean, I know that journey is long. It's hard. Financially, it's tough. You have a lot of juggling. I'm also a dad, have a wife, like I know that like family and work and I'm not even doing anything that is like a long-term, like I'm not making films. Like I go to work and I have clients and they pay me and the money is there. But that's along the way, you need to hear positive feedback. Like I think we all need to hear something that keeps us going, keeps us getting up every day, keeps us passionate about what we want to do. Can you share, it could be one or two, can you share like something somebody said, either a testimonial or a win, or something that somebody has said that has really fired you up to keep going and keep doing what you do?
Yeah, I got commissioned to work on this documentary, and it was about this other punk rock record label that this guy started in Austria. It's become pretty big at this point. It's called Spam.
Oh yeah.
And he had done some screenings with my first movie, that a Fat Wreck, punk rock fan, big fan of Fat Records, and flew us over there, and we were filming, and because he has this big festival that they were doing, and at the festival, and this has happened to me before, but this is the one that I can recall off the top of my head. At the festival, someone came up to me because I was a little bit of a minor celebrity there, because Fat Records loomed very large within the community over there, and the fact that I had done the documentary. A lot of people, you know, were big fans of it. And I had a guy come over to me and thank me for making the documentary because uh, at one point he said he got really low in a depression and was in a bad place. And the thing that was able to pull him out and kind of was watching the Fat Wreck doc. I might tear up. Like that it like basically saying like, hey, it was really important to me. You know, this movie was important. It was something I could latch on to when I was feeling, you know, the lowest of lows.
Wow.
And yeah, that's why you make
Yeah.
stuff. You know, you make stuff, you know, at least that's why I make stuff. That's why I'm dumb. I don't make stuff for money. I make it because I feel like I would love to have the kind of the art that I make have the same kind of impact that other people's art have had on me,
Yes.
and kind of continue that thing, you know. And so that type of thing is the thing that keeps you going.
Yeah.
I would even say like in our most recent, like I just did a crowdfunding thing that ended and it didn't go super as well as I'd hoped. But someone, and I won't say who because I wanted to stay a little bit anonymous, but somebody who I greatly respect and in the field of podcasting is well loved and renowned and someone who was an amazing storyteller. They donated a significant amount to our crowdfunding deal at a moment where I kind of felt like, does anybody want this? Did I mess up? Did I just spend the last 6 years of my life? Did I waste my time? Like, and when that came in, it wasn't about the money. It was about the money was very helpful. I mean, that
Sure.
was cool, but it was more the gesture and more of a vote of confidence,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. And
Yes.
especially from who this was coming from, it really kind of bolstered me, especially toward the end of the campaign where I was really feeling kind of, I mean, I had gone all out for the last like almost 5 months, like gearing up for it, prepping, doing lots of marketing, building lots of stuff, and just really doing everything I knew how to do. And yeah, that definitely in that moment kept me like for this new movie kept me go, okay, we got there's something here. And
Yeah.
there are other people who have said things, and there are other smaller gestures that help, but that one was a one that kind of I was like, okay, all right, I just got to keep going, and I have a little more funds to keep going. I have, you know, clearly this person it thinks that we're making is something worthwhile because they wouldn't have donated that significant amount of money to, you know, in one and not needing to get anything out of it. You know, it was
Right.
all just no credit, no anything like that. It was all just to support the film. So, um, yeah, like those are two things. One is from a someone the impact the film had on someone who watched it who is not in the industry, so like a fan kind
Mm-hmm.
of situation, and the other is encouragement from someone who's within the industry who knows the space really well. And yeah, I think those are the two most things that I can think off the top of my head.
I love it.
Um, yeah, that's making anything making anything requires like a business or a film. Like everything's hard. To do anything significant. I mean, you know, Jay, you know, building your business and building things, it wasn't easy. It's
No.
hard. It's
Yeah.
really hard. And I think people like making films is hard. Yeah, everything is hard. And
Yeah.
to do anything of any kind of significance in this world is hard. And yeah, I appreciate I mean, I appreciate what you do. You know, like I said, like it's you're encouraging. You know, to see what you're
Thanks.
doing and the way that you've done your stuff is encouraging to me. So
Well, I appreciate it, and you know that's good. I got a few more questions for you before we wrap up, but I find what you said there really resonated with me in a couple ways too, because even just in my day to day life, there have been times where I'm like, should I just go get a job? Like, should I just go back and just work for somebody else? I feel like I'm unemployable. I'm an entrepreneur. Like, when I work for somebody else, I will be the best employee, but I'll also be miserable on the inside because I don't want to be making this guy the money that I know I could be doing on my own. But I'm a really good employee because I'm really entrepreneurial and I'm good at what I do. People have always been like, "Oh, you're such a fast learner." I'm like, I just get it. It just doesn't, you're not trying to teach me rocket science, which I would not get right away. But it's always those times when I feel like, um, is what I'm doing right? Is what I'm doing worth it? That something big changes, like cataclysmic shifts. Like, I'll get a large client, I'll get a big check, I'll get a um, you know, a good lead. Something always happens in those moments, and again, we can't do this work. We can't do what we do, whether it's making films or running a marketing agency, if there aren't people along the way giving us some praise, positive feedback, words of encouragement. Thank you for helping me stay alive through this miserable time in my life. Like, all these things, they do mean a lot to us, and I think that's really cool. I'm gonna start to shift gears a little bit, and I do want to keep it moving just for time's sake.
Cool.
Um, making films, I don't know a whole lot about, but I have tried using Adobe Premiere and I am lost. So I stick to things like Microsoft's Clipchamp or InVideo online, like a browser-based video editor. Like, I am not a filmmaker. I am not a video editor. I can just do basics. I can cut scenes. We're actually doing our 100th episode, and all I'm doing is like cutting scenes out, and then I'll cut to them during the live broadcast. So take that what you will. How have you gotten to this point? Like, I call it earned it, learned it, improved your authority. Just kind of in a nutshell, like, what did it take? What's your education level like to become a filmmaker?
Well, like I think I said a little bit earlier, like I'm the term, and it sounds like you're also autodidactic, which is a
Yes.
cool way to say is I'm a self learner.
Yeah.
It sounds more it sounds like cooler. Someone said it to me. So I was saying somebody how I do stuff like, oh, you're autodidactic. Like, I'm gonna start using that from now on. It makes me sound smart.
Me too.
No, I have a very similar thing with you, Jay. Is that like I just kind of get stuff, and if I want to learn something, I mean, filmmaking, I learned. I didn't go to school for it. I pretty much I had when I was making a Fat Wreck, I just like, oh, I want to make a documentary, and I had produced a few short music videos and dabbled a little bit in some editing, and I said, hey, I want to do this documentary. I asked my buddy who knew about cameras. I was like, what camera should I rent? And then I like just went, and I think at the time I was flying to Las Vegas for punk rock bowling, and because I had a small little punk rock record label, and we were doing like sharing a table with somebody at a booth table. It's like I was going to be there anyway.
Yes.
So like what I ended up doing was going out there, and I went on Twitter and I reached out to people like, hey, I'm making this documentary, would you be interested in doing it? And I got a couple yeses. I had never really interviewed anybody before, I mean, really.
Right.
And I just went out there and started doing it, and like the people were excited about the fact that someone was thinking to do this project, so people were kind of excited about it already. And I just I like I said, I had a background in marketing, so that's helpful.
Helpful. Yeah.
And I had a background in technology, so I kind of knew computers and I knew those kind of things. So those things, allowed me to kind of have the confidence that I could figure it out. But really, I just started doing it, and I got really lucky. I got the luck. I mean, I put a lot of work in, but a lot of it had to do with luck.
Yeah.
Hold on. I mean, a lot of it had to do with I picked the right subject. Like Fat Mike, when once you get into filmmaking, like there's licensing and sync, all these kind of things. And I think there's like 120 songs in the film, the Fat Wreck documentary.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, like, and Mike ran the record label, so he could have charged me he didn't charge me for any of the songs.
That's awesome.
There's some publishing payments that I paid out to some of the bands, very little amount, but I paid out some as a gesture, more of a gesture.
Mm.
But there's no way I could have. It would have cost too much to make if I would have gone through if it had been a regular kind of thing. So it was, yeah. I didn't go to school for those things, but I've always been interested, and so I taught myself by asking questions, finding people who knew much more than about me, and saying, "Hey, I'm making this thing. Like, what should I do? Like, point me in the right direction." I mean, a Film Riot on YouTube, learning, and there's a few videos, several videos that I watched on how different on how to shoot and things like that. And after a certain point, people want to help you
Yeah,
because people are excited about it, and so they're like, "Oh, let me help you." Like I
that's
had like
awesome.
Emmy award winning motion graphics people begging me to work on the movie for free, like because it was a thing that they loved and cared about,
Right.
and I like to think of myself as like the tip of a spear. I'm like going in, and then what happens is other people kind of like they see it's happening, and they like maybe not have the wherewithal to take all the whole thing on, but they like that it's happening and want to be a part of it. So I like tapping into people's passion,
I
if
love
that
that.
makes sense.
Yes.
So, but I learn a lot from that and learn a lot from other people. So like I try to learn a little bit, get it going, and then someone's usually like, "Hey, this is pretty good. Let me help you
Yeah.
to make it better." You know what I mean? Like they can see the effort being put in. I think um, I have a saying, and I might even get it put on a T-shirt. Is that no effort is wasted.
Yeah.
No effort is wasted, and it may not go where you think it's going to go, but no effort is wasted. Any time you put into something, it may not turn out how you think, but all that effort goes somewhere, and people can see effort. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It's so true, and it does. It does. And we got a couple minutes left. So I just want to kind of wrap up. Um, and again, changing gears, that does, and I love that no effort is wasted because it rings true with with pretty much my day-to-day life, right? I mean, I'm putting in all this effort, and I know that it continues to pay off, even when I feel like um, everything's been a no, or everything's been radio silence, or these emails aren't getting returned, or whatever it is. But like it pays off. Like this whole process, this whole meet the experts thing, I mean, has been a gigantic effort, but none of it's been wasted, even if nothing happens from those relationships. But anyway, and it gives me a whole lot of things to be thankful for and a whole lot of things to be grateful for. So I want to kind of turn that on you. I only got a couple minutes left, but
Mhm.
but Shaun, if I were to say, just like professionally, personally, in your life, tell me something you're thankful for.
I'm thankful for my wife and kiddo, especially my wife. Like, there's a lot of times where I was speaking earlier when I had that trip to Austria. I'm headed off to Austria, an awesome trip, but my wife is back here with the kiddo, being a single parent essentially for a month because I was there for a month. And she didn't get to go to Austria, and I am, you know, going to Austria and getting like, "Oh, you're great, you made the movie," and like, "Oh," like all this kind of stuff. And my wife's back here, doing her day to day and taking care of the kiddo. And that's happened, not usually not that length of time, but that happens where I'll have to go and get to do the fun, cool thing. And she's a counselor. She works at a school, so her days can be kind of tough.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, I think you may be able to attest to this. A great partner
Yes.
can makes all like a huge difference. So I'm extremely grateful for my wife and my kiddo because she's so cool, and sometimes her dad has to go away for a little bit and things like that. Um, so yeah, I would say top line is the wife.
Awesome. So how old is your daughter?
She just turned 9.
Okay, mine's 8, and that's all we have is
Oh,
one.
okay.
So I'm
Yeah,
a
same,
girl dad of about the same
same.
age, and my my wife too. I always say, like, she really is the rock. She holds everything together. I travel a lot for. I'm actually go. You talked about going to punk rock bowling. I'm actually leaving in 3 days to go to Las Vegas. I'm actually very excited to go to the punk rock museum while I'm out there. It's like on my list of the first thing I'm gonna do on
Okay,
Monday.
one thing.
Yeah.
The puppets from the movie are in the museum.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, well, I'll take a picture and I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
No, that's awesome. But again, I love it when people go to family and kids. I love it when all my guests they go to family and kids. Um, with that answer, because I do feel like family is our main support, and we can't do what we do if we don't have good families. And sometimes my wife can't go on the trips because of her job, and I feel like we have a lot in common there. But I'm
yeah,
gonna wrap up. We only have we're a little over, but I'm gonna wrap up and go another 2 minutes or so. Um, I always like to finish with this question because you probably get asked, just like anybody else I've ever had on the show, you probably get asked one or two questions over and over and over and over again. Like they just keep coming up in your life about what you do. Um, Even if it's just one question. But what is a common question that people ask you about your career, about your what you do, about your job, that and how would you answer it on video?
how do you make money?
It's a good one.
How do you make money? uh and my answer is like like I said, I have like some cars that I rent out. I do like Uber and Lyft and things like that, and I have some, some residuals from the movies and things like that. So like it's a multifaceted thing, but I think people want to know, how do you make money off of movies, and I'm like, I mean, you do. I mean, clearly you have to make some money because like these projects cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to
Sure.
do. So you have to make some money. It's not feasible to do it without some money. But yeah, it's how do you make money? And I think they're hoping for a better answer. I'm
Right.
like, the money's over here. The money's over here. And that could change. That's the thing about making a film. It's an intellectual property that
Right.
theoretically, depending on how it's made, you own. And, the Fat Record documentary will exist into perpetuity,
Right.
and as streaming services change and all the different things, like I still own the rights to that. And, you know, as Fat Records changes and all these kind of things happen, like the interest in the movie can flow up and down. And same thing with this podcast doc, could make some money for me potentially. Maybe it goes big and I get actually make some real money. You know what I mean by real money.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I think like that's the question that gets asked a lot. I think the thing I hear mostly, though, being a documentarian, it's not necessarily a question, it's a statement,
Mm-hmm.
and it's, you should make a documentary about so and
Right.
so. They'll say, people will say that you should make a documentary about this. Like you should make a
Oh yeah.
documentary. It's like, I was like, you have no idea what that means. And usually when my turnaround is like, sounds like you're very passionate about this. You should make a documentary about
Right.
it.
Right.
And
Well,
they'll go, I don't know how to make a documentary. I was like, neither did I.
right.
I didn't know how to do it either. Just start doing it. If you feel that passionately about it, start making it, and you'll figure it out along the way. You know, and so I hear that a lot. That's
It's so funny
especially.
you say that because when we first jumped on the call before the interview, I said, "Oh, I've got this thing we did a couple years ago, and there's a really good story behind it, and this would be really cool, and I might need your help with it." And I wasn't asking you to do it, but I was like, because I know like what that entails. That's like years and lots of money and time. But it is. I can imagine a lot of people would say, "Oh, you should do it on this or that," and I love your answer to that. Is just
I
try it.
I, I want to add that I also say, if you make it, here's my email address. I'll help. Like I'll provide any information. I'll help you. I can't make it for you, but
Right.
I'll anything that I know, I'll share.
I love that.
Definitely, 100%. And if you need any help with yours, I would, like if you have questions and like if something that you decide that you want to take on, like I would be more than happy to help. I can't make it for you, but I
I'm
would love to
gonna
help.
I'm putting that one in my back pocket, Shaun. I'm coming back to you with that. So
Seriously,
yeah,
seriously, reach
absolutely.
out, man.
So Shaun is the director producer of the upcoming feature documentary Age of Audio. It's about the podcasting industry. It's funny, I call Meet the Experts the anti-podcast because I don't put it upload to all the podcast platforms. But you can go to AOA Movie on any of the social channels or AOAmovie.com. And Shaun, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been a lot of fun, and I think you and I just became friends for life. So I'm looking forward to more conversations. We have so much in common.
Yes.
All
Love
right.
it, Jay. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, buddy. Take care. All right, that was awesome. Look, I love when I get. It's rare. It's rare that this happens. I love when I get that guest on here that is just like, you know, child a similar age, and we both come from the same music scene, and like just to find that like kindred spirit. And I feel like, you know, the minute I started talking to Shaun, I was like, oh gosh, just like a natural lifelong friend here potentially. So and what he does, I think, is just so cool. So, all right, listen, if you want to be a future guest on Meet the Experts, very easy. That's not it. How about that? At the bottom of the screen, www.meettheexpertspodcast.com. That's Meet the Experts with an S, podcast.com. Read all about it. Watch some videos. Got a little video of me telling you what's included, what's it all about. And we just give it to you. It doesn't cost you anything. So if you have a product, a service, or a passion that you want to share with an audience, let's do it. Let's jump on. Let's record an episode, and we'll give it to you. And if you need help editing it or doing anything else with that to get it ready for social media or website or YouTube, we can talk about that as well. But yeah, just go check it out, and look forward to having you on the show. Be on the lookout, January 17th. Now, I don't know when this episode's getting released, so it may be depending on the timing here. January 17th, our 100th episode is going to be a live stream. We're going to do some best of clips, and looking forward to that. This has been a labor of love, passion project for years, and we have no plans of slowing down or stopping. So until the next one, if you haven't said something nice to someone else today yet, the day is not over. Go say something nice to somebody else. Do something good in the world.